You know, it feels like these days, Xbox is a dirty word. The brand has gone through the ringer for about a decade or so, ever since their launch of the Xbox One. A console that was named for its all-in-one utility, this thing turned people away with an always-online requirement, something that PlayStation instantly dunked on.
This is how you share your games on PS4.
Thanks.
PlayStation.
While they did run back the always online thing, it was just hard to compete with the exclusives that Sony had to offer. The last generation at least had Dead Rising 3, Sunset Overdrive, Killer Instinct, but compared to today, Xbox's offerings have been really underwhelming. Redfall was a disaster, Starfield hasn't left a mark, Hellblade 2 disappointed so many of the critics that loved the first one. And even when they do have a hit, like with Hi-Fi Rush, they completely ruin their goodwill by laying off the team responsible. Oh boy, do they love their mass layoffs. Phil Spencer is always apologizing. There's always some new gimmick that gives people pause, and this has contributed to Xbox being dead last in the console market. And what do you do when your brand isn't making an impact? You start putting your games on other systems. Hi-Fi Rush, Hellblade, Forza, Gears of War, and now the latest shock of all shocks, Halo. Halo is on PlayStation. I never thought I would see the day. It just feels like the end of Microsoft as a serious competitor. I know that they just released the Rogue Ally X and they say they're gonna make another console, but if I were a betting man, I'd say that in this economy, with no exclusive games to offer, that's just not happening. What I see is them going the way of Sega, maintaining a presence while releasing their titles on everything else. This is the end of an era for the brand we know as Xbox. And that's crazy, right? Ever since I was in high school, it was always there butting heads with PlayStation and Nintendo. Once upon a time, this brand used to have so much affection, so much goodwill. It really left its mark on the gaming landscape, and for my money, their second system was the best platform of the 7th generation, the Xbox 360. Back in the summer of 2024, the Xbox 360's marketplace officially shut down, prohibiting users from buying any unique games as well as their DLC. And when this happened, I obviously had to record the store's last days, and boy oh boy did I go ham. I purchased so much, scooped up videos I had never gotten before, and re-downloaded ancient media that I didn't want to take a chance on losing. Because who knows when Yaris will be deleted from the Xbox's servers forever. You don't know what Yaris is, do you? Going through all of that, man, I was just flooded with nostalgia. Because I loved the Xbox 360, more so than either PlayStation 3 or the Wii. Kid me would never have called that. That I would prefer Microsoft over the companies that made my childhood? Unthinkable. Impossible. But hey, 2005 was certainly a surprising time. I repeat, the Xbox 360 came out in 2005. Back then, Super Mario Bros. Was a 20-year-old game. Now, it's 40 years old. I'm sorry, folks, the 360 is now retro. You don't have to like it, you can deny it all you want, but it is the truth. Anyway, with the end of Xbox as we know it, I wanted to go back in time and reminisce about the old days. A time when the brand was at its highest point, a transitionary period between the retro memory card era and the online creative outlet that gaming has become today. There's a lot of people who think of Xbox as the hoorah Halo machine where shooty McBangbangs flourish, but honestly, the console had a little something for everybody. It had puzzle games, it had fighting games, it had JRPGs, it had platformers, experiences you had never seen before that point. It solidified my love for everything this industry has to offer, and it will forever remain a special time in my life. One that wasn't always perfect, but hey, I never dwell on the negatives. If you weren't around during this time, Hopefully, this video will be enlightening. This is my love letter to the Xbox 360. So let's start from the beginning. Why did I gravitate towards the Xbox 360? Well, back in the 6th generation, I had myself both a PlayStation 2 as well as a Nintendo GameCube. And why not? Those were trusted brands from my childhood that were still delivering on things I cared about. Microsoft, on the other hand, was the new guy, the untested aspirant who was joining the fray for the very first time.
The Xbox is everything The Rock is. Cutting edge, powerful, exhilarating, and like The Rock, it will be the most electrifying thing coming out this year.
That's all well and good, Dwayne, but I don't see anything that I want to play. Well, it wouldn't take long for one game to completely grab everyone's attention. My friend Pat decided to take a chance and asked his parents to get an Xbox. With it, he got Halo, and man, you couldn't ask for a better launch title. This was the best multiplayer shooter since GoldenEye, one of the two games that me and my friends played religiously in high school. The other, of course, being Super Smash Bros. Melee. This was how I got acquainted with the machine, as well as its original Duke controllers, which were friggin' ginormous! Even Shaquille O'Neal didn't like these things. Regardless, besides Halo, we didn't get a lot of mileage out of the machine. I remember I borrowed it once to play through Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic because that had won tons of Game of the Year awards back in 2003. And yeah, rightfully so, that game is friggin' phenomenal. And then I borrowed it again because I was really curious about Fable, this adventure game where you played as a kid that grew up to either be a noble hero or a monstrous villain. And every now and then I would dabble with Jet Set Radio Future, and I tried out Crimson Skies once, but that was the extent of it. I didn't rush to play Blinx the Time Sweeper. I wasn't grabbed by the ghoulies. As a console, it just didn't have a lot of the heavy hitters. There were no Final Fantasies, no Tekken games, no Resident Evil. On a hardware level, it was fantastic, but there was nothing that was stealing me away from the GameCube or PS2. Then, 2005 rolls around.
I'm Elijah Wood, and MTV is here to bring you an exclusive look at the new Xbox, a console that's about to change digital entertainment forever.
This and Microsoft's E3 presentation was our first window into the 7th generation, showing us that gaming was going to be pushing everything to the limit with higher NPC counts and more rounded, detailed features. A system that would be in high definition, that would allow users to buy smaller games and download demos and communicate with our friends in a completely new way. They showed off early teasers of Gears of War, Dead Rising, and Mass Effect. Even Rareware was pulling their weight with 2 new releases: Cameo, Elements of Power, and the highly anticipated Perfect Dark Zero, a follow-up to one of the best console shooters on the N64. This was all really exciting, and I was just like, eh. Like, don't get me wrong, I am in love with so many of the games that were revealed just there, but when I was in high school, a game like Gears of War just seemed like another generic shooter. I had no idea the open scope of Dead Rising. I had no clue that Mass Effect was going to be the biggest franchise in the world. I had personal bias and favoritism for the brands that never let me down. And there was no way in hell I was going to buy an Xbox 360 until I saw the PlayStation 3. And who the hell wasn't excited for that? So when the 360 launched in 2005, I did not get one. And I felt a little vindicated when reviews for Perfect Dark Zero started coming out because, hoo boy, that game was a stinky piece of doo-doo. I'm sorry, I just recently replayed it for this video, and wowzer, it is not fun. Bad controls, bad maps, bad graphics, bad mission clarity. It was the antithesis of everything that the original was. A Halo killer? It was not. So hey, bring on the PS Triple.
The 20 gigabyte PlayStation 3 will retail for $499 US dollars and 549 Canadian dollars.
Oh my god. That was a really high asking price back in the day. Oh sure, the Nintendo Switch 2 is selling for the same thing now, but that's after inflation, my friends. If I were to buy a PS3 at that price today, it would be over $770. It was, a lot. But hey, I'm sure it's got some great games.
So here's this giant enemy crab.
I'm sorry, but I just found the PS3 library to be quite underwhelming. The team that made Spyro and Ratchet were now making a brown first-person shooter with Resistance. Heavenly Sword showed technical promise, but it was also really identical to God of War. There was a Hot Shots, there was Gran Turismo. I mean, it's not like they didn't have any games, but man, other than Metal Gear Solid 4, there was just nothing to get excited about. Much to my surprise, I was second-guessing Sony's system. And then, my friend Matt managed to push me over the edge, because he got an Xbox 360, along with the system exclusive Dead or Alive 4. This is when I first got acquainted with the box, the controller, and the brilliant user interface. I really liked the feel of the 360 controller because the D-pad was wide and buttery smooth. When I got a corded one, it was my go-to for all kinds of emulation. In fact, every single Retro 2009 Let's Play I ever did was with the 360 controller. I loved the centerpiece logo and how it communicated your connection status. By having this LED circle which lit up in 4 different corners, you always knew which player you were and whether the battery was about to die. It was just so fun turning the console on and seeing the circle light up, moving the ring clockwise as a little light show. And I still think the original design was really sleek, illustrating that we were in a new era. We ditched all the dark colors of the 6th generation for a nice solid white. Enhanced by a metal disc tray and an easily removable hard drive that you could bring over to a friend's. But the actual menus themselves, I mean, good lord, I loved the blades. These metal sliders separating all your colorful sections, indicating which screen was for your game and your multimedia and online shopping. I mean, it was just so exciting experiencing the next generation for the first time. Especially when I discovered one new feature that Xbox introduced. Because me and my friend played so much of Dead or Alive 4. And that includes suffering through the extremely obnoxious final boss, Alpha 152.
You lose!
That cheating bitch. But when we did beat her, I remember seeing my very first 360 notification pop up, informing me that I had unlocked an achievement. And this moment completely altered my brain chemistry.
We've also added a new concept called achievements. Now, these are sort of a record of everything you've accomplished across your entire library of games. Let's say you haven't figured out that final achievement in PGR3. Just ask a friend online. In the HD era, community and connection is critical.
What a novel idea. Xbox 360 was a system that embraced its online infrastructure, whereas before we used to depend on gaming magazines and websites and demo discs to see everything that the industry had to offer. Now all of it was at our fingertips. If you were unsure about whether that new Tony Hawk game was going to suck or not, you could now download the demo to see for yourself. If you wanted to see the hot new trailer for an upcoming game, you could actually download that video in 720 or 1080p to get the best quality possible. As a content creator, I grabbed so much media before the store went offline, because where else are you going to get a high-quality rip of a SmackDown vs. Raw commercial? Or that really funny Viva Pinata one?
Whoa. You could break me open and take my candy, but wouldn't you like something better? If you get me down from here, I'll grant you all your wishes. For you, an X-ray machine. For you, a pet cobra. How about sunscreen? Pants that fit. Just get me down and it's all yours. Come on. Come on. Just so we're clear, kids, I'm not magical.
Giddy up! Yeah! Yeah! That was acting, children! Bravo for me!
To complement Saints Row, Brady Games and Game Trailers released free walkthrough videos to teach people how to navigate some of the more challenging side activities. You could watch the E3 conferences, tons of press junket previews for what was coming to the system, behind-the-scenes developer videos. It was such a great portal for all kinds of content. And along with this online marketplace came personality in the form of your gamer tag. It was like having a MySpace or Facebook page, but for your video game identity. And anyone who owned this system is intimately familiar with the default display pictures. The carefree kid blowing bubblegum, the pink-haired anime cat girl, the black skull in front of fire, the angry monkey, the doggo who's judging your life choices. If you ever played online, you'd interact with dozens of players who didn't use the marketplace to buy new icons. So these images were burned into our brains, the first vestiges of online gaming. And to punctuate whether you were a casual or hardcore gamer, the gamertag also displayed your gamer score, a numeric indicator of how many games and challenges you had overcome. I loved this idea. Now every single game had a set of challenges that deeply extended playtime. It wasn't always just beat the game on the hardest difficulty. Sometimes you had to do cool tricks like throwing back enemy grenades in Call of Duty 3. Or in Crackdown, use explosives to juggle a car in the air for over 7 seconds. Sometimes they were used as a comedic punchline, like in LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga, where killing non-enemy character Jar Jar Binks 20 times nets you the Crowd Pleaser achievement. Because if you didn't know, kids, we really didn't like Jar Jar Binks. I also felt that achievements could inform you of new strategies and playstyles that you might not have been aware of otherwise. Take Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore, for example. Thanks to me wanting to be a completionist, I discovered that there was a challenge for beating the game without picking up the magic gun. A task that seems kind of impossible until you snoop around for hidden pathways and discover that you can pick up a special item much earlier than you thought you could. It totally rewrites every playthrough of that game because now you know you can destroy magical barriers much earlier and therefore get the most optimization. Had I not glanced at the trophy list, I would not be aware of this fact. In terms of community, I loved glancing at all of my online friends' achievement lists because it told me not only what they were playing, but also how far they had gotten. Oh, my friend's playing Mass Effect. What a perfect excuse to start up a conversation about it. And if you were shy about your lack of skill or you didn't want anyone to know this stuff, you could always turn it off in the settings. I love the concept of achievements, and Xbox started this trend. You guys gotta remember, no one else was doing this before this point. PlayStation 3 did not start off with trophies. If you're a trophy hunter who decides to play Heavenly Sword today, you'll be surprised to discover that there's nothing to unlock. I can't get anything with PS3 Mega Man 9, but I definitely can with its 360 counterpart. Steam didn't implement achievements until 2007, and PlayStation followed suit in 2009. The 360 walked so that retro achievements could run. Everything about the 360 was hitting me in all the right ways. And then came late 2006. My friend wasn't playing his 360 much, and I was desperate to play two of the new titles that had just come out, Dead Rising and Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. So he lent the 360 to me for a week and said, yeah man, go nuts. This is how I became far more acquainted with the online store and everything this machine had to offer. And this is also where I had two wildly different reactions to the games I played. Sonic 06 was a fucking train wreck. Everything about it was just so terrible, and Oh, sorry, I'm being handed a note by the Sonic community. Ha 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 ha, I was just kidding. Sonic 06 is peak, actually. It is based. It has the riz. It's bussin'. This is when the series had ambition and heart. The levels are just so fun that you want to replay them every day. The problems are over-exaggerated. Anyone who dislikes this game is a hater and washed. If it came out today, everyone would agree that it is 10 times better than Sonic Frontiers.
This is terrible!
Anywho, after playing that piece of shit, I managed to play Dead Rising, and this game is so friggin' incredible. I'd easily enter it into my top 20 favorite video games of all time. Whereas games like Resident Evil treated zombies with clinical seriousness, Dead Rising just let players go ham. Wear whatever outfit you want, kill zombies with a baseball bat, with a rake, with a friggin' bowling ball, skateboard through crowds of those guys, or run them over with your car. This is the quintessential zombie video game, and it was mind-blowing to me that it was an Xbox exclusive. What do you mean this isn't coming to PlayStation? How did Sony fumble that bag? I was in love with this game, and I knew I wanted to play it even more. But I would need to buy an Xbox 360. Well, the prospect became even more enticing as I learned about the other exclusives. How BioWare, the team that made Knights of the Old Republic, were now making Mass Effect, a new sci-fi epic with incredible visuals. We were all waiting for the next Grand Theft Auto, but Volition Entertainment had us covered with their new sandbox gangster game, Saints Row. Banjo-Kazooie was coming back. The creator of Final Fantasy was going to show us his Lost Odyssey, and God knows everyone was excited for the most anticipated shooter of all time, Halo 3. And as you think about how great the exclusives are, Sony loses all of theirs.
Square Enix will join with Microsoft and Xbox to bring our games to Xbox 360 and Xbox Live.
PlayStation had a monopoly on so many franchises with the PS2. It's why it will go down as one of the greatest consoles of all time. But with this next generation, Xbox was all about courting the competition. You liked Final Fantasy XII? Well, 13 is coming to Xbox. Want to test your skills with Devil May Cry? Why don't you try getting all the achievements on 360? Tekken, Soul Calibur, Resident Evil, Guitar Hero, SmackDown vs. Raw, Grand Theft Auto. Everything that PlayStation was known for having, it was now sharing with Xbox. All of a sudden, I didn't feel like I was losing anything. I vastly enjoyed the 360's library, and it was a much cheaper console. So, this is why I bought an Xbox 360 to be my main console of the 7th generation. I do want to stress that this is not a console war video. While I didn't choose the PS3 back in 2006, I still eventually got one for myself. And I love Little Big Planet, Uncharted, Metal Gear 4, Infamous. I mean, it ended its generation with The Last of Us. The system got better as time went on. And of course, it still received plenty of the multi-platform gems that it shared with 360, but not the Wii. Which brings me to point number 2. Yes, I played my 360 way more than I did Nintendo, but they were in a completely different ballpark this generation. Take, for example, Dead Rising Chop Till You Drop. I guess the 360 box art was wrong, because this same story and scenario are playable on the Nintendo Wii as well. But it's apples and oranges in how different the games operated. Nintendo decided they wanted to stay a generation behind, that they weren't interested in high-definition graphics or incredible horsepower. So when Capcom decided to give them their own version of the game, it had far less zombies, it utilized Resident Evil 4's control scheme, it didn't have the same freedom, there were so many invisible walls and new weird enemy types. It just wasn't as good as its high-definition counterpart. And I feel like there are dozens of examples like that. Sonic Unleashed was the most exciting and fresh-feeling game in the series on 360. You play it on Wii, and it's fine, you know? Tron Evolution is this parkour Prince of Persia type action game on Xbox, but on the Wii, it had to be a cartoony minigame collection because that's just how the cookie crumbled. Nintendo's system just lacked so many of the great multi-platform titles that made that generation. It didn't have Dark Souls or the Batman Arkham games or Red Dead Redemption or Portal 1 and 2. Of course it had great first-party stuff, some neat exclusives here and there, but in sheer variety and horsepower, it just couldn't match the Xbox 360. So that's why I never make comparisons between the two. I glaze up the 360 because it's still the most comfortable console in general. As a content creator, I really appreciate the fact that when you set it in 1080p, every single game outputs in that aspect ratio, even if it's an original Xbox game of which the console was backwards compatible. PlayStation 3 still forces games like Heavenly Sword and Way of the Samurai 4 to be in 720 because that's its native resolution. Developers have often said that it was harder to make games for PS3 over the 360, which leads to some quality differences like in the case of Bayonetta. On Xbox, that game runs a lot closer to 60 frames per second and has much shorter loading times. On PS3, it ran at 30 and was slow as molasses. On Xbox, you have the option to personally install every disc-based game onto the hard drive, reducing load times and the risk of disk scratching. And God, with the last version of 360, you could hold on to hundreds of games with that memory storage. It certainly doesn't hurt that games like Elder Scrolls V Skyrim were under 4 gigs. Skyrim was 4 fucking gigs! God, I miss that in this age of gaming. Why the hell is Mortal Kombat 1 over 200? Even at launch, I still preferred the user interface and the online navigation. The blades were always more interesting than PS3's minimalist approach, and then it got even better with the 2008 Avatar update. You could easily find games alphabetically, by genre, and it was so quick and snappy, and it didn't require loading an entirely different menu. It also helps that it separated the big-budget main games from the Xbox Live Arcade titles. If you were looking for something smaller and cheaper, you could scroll through that section specifically. And this was back in the day when consoles were not swarmed with AI slop garbage. I mean, hell, just look at the PS5 today. Ambulance Life, a paramedic simulator. Ambulance 911 simulator. Doctor simulator. Expedition Survival simulator. Kebab simulator. Hobby horsing simulator. Hentai shop simulator. Electronic supermarket simulator. Sex shop simulator. Ale tavern simulator. Every Tuesday, I see hundreds of games dropped onto game stores with no clear organization. All of the hidden gems are buried underneath so much low-effort garbage, and it's time-consuming trying to find anything worth playing. And people thought the Wii was a shovelware system. I miss the 360's interface. I miss when there were fewer games and almost all of them demanded your attention. A time when indie titles could truly break out, as I will certainly cover later. I love this system, I truly do. But look, to be fair, I can go over some of the 360's failings as well. Like every system that generation, it was backwards compatible with the previous console, which was great for me as I skipped out on the original Xbox, and now I could enjoy titles like Jet Set Radio, Ninja Gaiden, and Halo 2 without having to go back and buy a second machine. And while it does work for the most part, compared to PlayStation and Nintendo, it still has its kinks. I think the worst offender by far is Knights of the Old Republic. This is a game that feels particularly handicapped, sometimes operating like a goddamn PowerPoint presentation. If you play it too long, the sound effects just disappear after a while, and the stuttering in certain cutscenes is ridiculous.
On behalf of the Jedi Council, defenders of the galaxy, and sworn protectors of the Republic, I too would like to honor you.
Good lord. Don't get me wrong, I think most games still work pretty well, all things considered, but you do wonder sometimes. Is the game slowing down naturally, or is it because of the emulation? At launch, the 360 required that you bought tons of accessories just to get the most out of it. The controller is indeed very comfortable, but it's also the first one to be completely wireless. But instead of using a USB charger like PlayStation did, it uses batteries, which means you gotta keep shelling out for juice every now and then, unless you buy a specific charging battery or a wired controller. This is the first console to be in high definition. The future is here! So how come when the system launched, it only came with composite cables? Yeah, no, seriously, all you got were those red, white, and yellow plugs that were made for CRTs. Now, this wouldn't necessarily be a problem because in 05-06, most people didn't have HD TVs, but it did lead to some really frustrating user interface that developers didn't consider. The biggest complaint I remember hearing about Dead Rising is that no one could read the dialogue. It was so tiny on a CRT, and when you're trying to rescue survivors, you can barely see what they want you to do. And even for HD setups, games like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts just made the font so friggin' tiny that they would later have to patch in bigger text. When I'm struggling to read the dialogue in 1080p, something's gone horribly wrong. To me, it's just inexcusable that I would have to buy an HDMI cable for what's supposed to be the next generation of gaming. I played on those composite cables until 2009. And then, I finally experienced HDMI when I got my second 360. Yeah, I had to buy a new one. And I think you know why.
CNBC's Jane Wells live in Los Angeles with how the 360's problems are heating up, literally.
This all came together in this horrific perfect storm.
Some faulty Xbox 360s are literally melting down while running certain games.
Microsoft hasn't specified the cause, but users say the console's cooling system just can't take the heat of a lot of play.
By far the biggest scandal of the 360, and one I certainly cannot gloss over, the Red Ring of Death. Not only did it happen to me, but also 4 of my friends in my small podunk town as well. My friggin' video store clerk learned the ins and outs of 360 hardware and was actually commissioned by tons of people to fix the Red Ring himself. It was that big of a problem. Microsoft would eventually release a new model of the 360 that was cheaper, had a new black design, as well as a massive hard drive. And as far as I know, it avoided the Red Ring, as I've still been using it since 2010. But Jesus, if there was ever a thing that convinced people to migrate to the PlayStation 3, this was it. Whether the system was rushed or if there was some grand conspiracy to make people buy extra versions of the console, it was a huge stain on the image of that system. A complete hardware disaster, which is of course a shame because the Xbox 360 is just so damn good. But alright, I'm done. I've told you the history, I told you why I got one, now it's time to start celebrating all of the brilliant video games that call this system home. For this first segment, I'm going to talk about all of the exclusives, and for the record, I classify that as being a game you cannot play on PlayStation or Nintendo. Gears of War, for example, was a 2006 game that was later released on PC in 2007. It was part of Microsoft's Games for Windows service. Of course, the computer company would want to release some of their games onto computers. Now, as a console gamer, I only had 3 options that generation. Gears is not on Nintendo, and it's not on PlayStation. Since I do not want to play video games on my computer, I still say it's an Xbox exclusive. Your mileage may vary, you could say I'm playing fast and loose with the rules, but that's just the way I see it, and I don't want to hear otherwise. Oh, Fable 3 is on PC? Well, thanks to DRM, you can't play it anymore, asshole! But whatever. If there's one thing Xbox had over PlayStation, is that it was the mecca of shooters. Call of Duty 2 was a great launch title, and it's always important to remember that the only good Nazi is a fucking dead one. Then in 2006, Gears of War came out, and I actually like this series way more than Halo. All of the characters are giant testosterone-filled meatbags with so much personality. I love your squad best buddy Dom, the asshole you love to hate Baird. And then, of course, there's the Coal Train, baby.
Your ass is gonna be quiet till your skink ass quit. Oh, mommy, don't let the bad man hurt us. Fuck you. We're gonna whoop your mama's ass. Whoa!
You were great. I loved your speech there, especially with the bitch-ass stuff. Very good, very enlightening.
These games had pretty entertaining stories that could actually pull at your heartstrings on occasion. But really the big seller was the gameplay, and how it completely revolutionized the genre with its duck and cover mechanics. Here we had a game that wasn't just about strafing and hiding behind pillars, where reloading your gun is an actual minigame with risk and reward. If you press the button in time with the white icon, your bullets flash and you do more damage. If you messed it up, it would take longer to reload. What a cool way to make hiding behind cover really exciting. And then there's the Lancer, a gun that has a chainsaw attached to it. It's so fucking badass and so damn satisfying to sneak up on somebody and then just cut them in half. Ugh, what a game. It certainly has the juice.
Look at all that juice.
The sequels might have been on PlayStation, but that first Saints Row called the 360 its home. And man, when we were waiting for Grand Theft Auto 4, this game was such a great holdover. In many ways, I think it's just as funny and often more convenient and fun to play than a game like Vice City. And it wasn't the only sandbox game. There was also Crackdown. In this game, you play as a one-man super cop who has to take out all of the gangs in Pacific City. But the neat gimmick with this one was that your character became more superpowered the more experience they collected. You punch people enough, your muscles grow bigger. You climb enough buildings, your jump gets higher. By the end, you were basically the Incredible Hulk with a machine gun. And it was unbelievably fun to just launch from building to building, blowing up anything that moves with a rocket launcher. This was a game I would just vibe to, listening to my custom soundtracks as I wreaked havoc upon the city. Oh yeah, another feature of the 360 was that you could rip tracks from music CDs and listen to them in whatever game you were playing. So if you want to blow things up to Sabrina Carpenter, you can still do so on the Xbox 360. But of course, when it comes to shooters, the big titan will always be Halo, and Halo 3 was the best-selling game of 2007. Everybody played this damn thing, and even though the system didn't launch with an HDMI cord or with a charger, it did include a headset. And online gaming was truly defined by this era. Whether through Call of Duty or Gears or Halo, this was the moment that so many players finally got to communicate with people from all over the world. For better or for worse.
Wanna sniff some crack with me? Seriously, I'm all amped up.
Mom's obviously not home, hey?
What? What was
Mom's
that?
obviously not home, that's why you're talking like that.
Remember that chick I was over last night that threw up everywhere because my dick went so far down her throat? that was his mom.
Man, there are so many clips of children playing Halo 3 while people are saying some of the most vile, disgusting shit you should never say. I mean, good lord. Did parents not see the M for Mature rating on the front of the box? With Xbox Live parties, it was easy to invite friends into a voice chat, making online gaming more accessible than ever before. And Halo 3 is undoubtedly the peak of this franchise. People forget what an institution this thing was. Everybody was spending their time poning noobs and riding banshees. A game so prolific, it put an online internet group into megastardom through Red vs. Blue.
What are we supposed to do with an empty room?
Use your imagination.
My imagination? This game is only rated M for mature. I reserve my imagination for the adults only.
Yeah, okay. Let's move on.
Bungie and Microsoft made so much bank off of Halo 3, so naturally they had to milk it for all it was worth. ODST, Reach, the Master Chief Collection, Halo Wars, Halo 4. All of this content was on the 360 because gamers could not get enough. It's an absurd embarrassment of riches.
And try to keep up.
Take my advice, rookie. You ever fall for a woman? Make sure she's got balls.
Again, I feel the preconceived opinion from a lot of people is that Xbox was a system for shooter fans and little else. Well, I just got the big ones out of the way. Now it's time to start talking about all the other stuff that made this system so special. Condemned: Criminal Origins. This was a Sega launch title, a survival horror game from the first-person perspective that focused more on melee combat. You're an FBI agent trying to navigate a depraved neighborhood where all of the vagrants have turned into bloodthirsty killers. And this is genuinely a ton of fun and one of the most underrated horror games. The way enemies will hide in the background to try and get the jump on you. How you'll come across creepy mannequins and fucked up imagery that belongs in the movie Seven. This game is still available on Steam, and I absolutely recommend that people give it a shot. Alan Wake. Remedy Entertainment is one of the best developers out there, and after making all of the Max Payne games, Microsoft scooped them up for some exclusives. Alan Wake is another great survival horror game where you play as a fiction writer who's being hunted by shadowy figures that can only be made vulnerable with light. Which makes the combat kind of interesting because it's basically Luigi's Mansion but with a gun. But that's selling the whole thing short, as its narrative and characters are so well realized. Borrowing some of that Twin Peaks energy, injecting live-action segments, this was a game I didn't truly appreciate enough when it first came out. But going back to it, holy hell, this game friggin' rules. This team would go on to make Quantum Break and Control, which are both quite excellent.
Are you gonna tell me what this is?
I don't think that'd go over too well.
Why don't you let me be the judge of that?
Fine. The page is a formula for rewriting reality. Either I use it to close a strange portal to a place that isn't in our world, or shadowy serial killer monster things keep pouring out of there.
Yeah, you were right the first time.
Okay, but let's say you're not into horror games. Come on, Clement, I want something lighter and less gritty. Well, let me show you a beautiful Katamari. Katamari Damacy was one of the biggest surprises on the PlayStation 2, and if there was any series I wouldn't have called coming to Xbox, it's this one. And this isn't just like an HD port, no, this is a completely new game with new locations and music. After his dad accidentally creates a black hole that threatens to destroy the universe, the Prince of all Cosmos has to roll everything up into Katamari's so he can plug that hole. As you do. As wacky as any Japanese game can get, you roll up tiny things at first, but then it expands into rolling up people, and houses, and continents, and planets. I've always loved the addictive gameplay. It's simple, it's unique, and my god, that music is indeed beautiful. I feel that Rare as a studio has not been looked upon fondly since Microsoft acquired them. They released so many banger games on the N64, and then they piddled out a few mediocre titles with Xbox until their big disappointment, which I'll get to in a bit. And while I will say that Perfect Dark Zero does not hold up well at all, I will actually stand up for the others. Rare actually released 2 launch titles with the Xbox 360. And the other one was Cameo, Elements of Power. This game is as old school Rare as they were ever gonna get. You play as this magic girl who transforms into other creatures. A Venus flytrap with boxing gloves, a giant glacier yeti, a bunch of boulders and rocks that roll around together. And this involves unique abilities for different situations, some puzzle solving, some combat, and honestly, if you can get past the dated visuals and the kind of weird voice acting, I think this game is perfectly fine. For a game that didn't sell well, it feels like everyone who talks about it has great things to say. And as much as I liked this, I liked their next game even more. No, seriously, this game deserves way more love. If you've ever complained at Sonic Team for not making another Chow Garden, Viva Pinata is the thing you're looking for. Part farming sim, part Sims-like, this is a game where you customize your own garden/habitat and try to attract and care for all of the various pinata animals that roam the land. You basically accomplish a whole bunch of submissions in order to open up the possibility of a fox or a bird or a hedgehog to appear, or to make them breed and have baby pinatas, or to sick them on other pinatas to eat and devour them. It's a game I have put a lot of time in, and you know, I can't think of too many kids games from that era that had their own TV show. It's a great title. It had tons of sequels, but okay, we all know what you're waiting for. Let's talk about Banjo-Kazooie. I know, it's one of the greatest N64 games ever, arguably the best platformer ever made, and when Xbox bought Rare, it felt like the Bear and Bird might never come back. Until 2006, when we got a neat little teaser that said the opposite. People got excited. They bought an Xbox 360 purely for this game. And then... Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts was revealed to be a vehicle construction, exploratory, mission-based thing that doesn't feel at all like the previous two games. And being British and cheeky, Rare was taking the piss out of collectathons, saying how those kinds of games are outdated and Banjo needs to get with the times and upgrade and yada yada yada. People were so disappointed. This wasn't the game they waited 8 years for. And like, I get the sentiment, you know? I was also kind of put off. But at the same time, I can't outright say that Nuts and Bolts isn't mechanically pretty damn interesting. It's like a lost Lego game where you build your own machine to accomplish the missions however you like. An experimental sandbox to get the best scores on the leaderboards that you possibly can. And the worlds are so dense, the music is still really great. I don't hate the graphics. I mean, there's effort here. I couldn't imagine the struggle it must have been to fine-tune the physics of these cars and boats and planes. They poured a lot of love into this experience. It's just a shame that the Banjo-Kazooie brand created expectations that definitely were not met. I'll never call it a bad game, but hoo boy, it was indeed a controversial one. Hey, at least back then they actually used the franchise instead of letting it collect dust until Smash Brothers wanted to use it. Hey, is anyone watching this a fan of RPGs? Because contrary to what you might have heard, the Xbox 360 had tons of them. One of the early reveals at E3 2005 was Lost Odyssey. If you're unfamiliar, this game was developed by Mistwalker Studios, which is headed by the creator of Final Fantasy, Hironobu Sakaguchi. And the composer of this team was Nobuo Uematsu, the primary musician behind Final Fantasy. And if you know anything about my feelings regarding Final Fantasy XIII, then you'll understand when I say that Lost Odyssey is my Final Fantasy XIII. But seriously, this game was incredible. It still had the bombastic epic scope of anything put out by Square Enix. It had great English voice acting, cool pre-rendered cutscenes, and a turn-based battle system where buffs and debuffs were super important. Like, the only criticism I really have for the game is that the first two bosses are the hardest bosses in the game. I'm not even kidding. RNG Griffin can go suck a dick. Great characters, great story, it's just a really good time that desperately needs a re-release on something other than an Xbox. And it wasn't the only thing that Mistwalker made for the system, because another Xbox exclusive RPG was Blue Dragon, a game that may have the greatest boss theme I have ever heard. With artwork by Akira Toriyama, Blue Dragon has a bunch of kids swallow some blue marbles and gain some furry personas. And then they customize those blue creatures to have any kind of fighting style they wish. Black magic, white magic, a straight brawler. This is basically Final Fantasy V with a twist. I don't think the game is as good as Lost Odyssey, but I certainly don't think it's a terrible time either. It just takes a while to get going with its slow opening and overall pacing. But that's it for Mistwalker games. Now we have Tales of Vesperia. You may have read on Wikipedia that this game was on PlayStation 3, and yes, it was, but only in Japan. If you lived in Europe or North America, the only way you could play this game in English was through the 360. And after a long time of being disappointed by Tales games after Symphonia, Vesperia became my second favorite. The combat was super exciting, the voice acting impeccable, and I just really loved the characters. Yuri has this moment in the story where he goes much further than any protagonist before him would have. And that was when he became my absolute favorite Tales character of all time. God, he's great. This game is great. One day, I'll have to talk about the Tales series.
They're bouncing. What are you looking at? I wish I could bounce.
Oh, Jesus. If we're getting into the really obscure stuff, the PlayStation 2 had a game called Magna Carta. Well, the sequel became an Xbox exclusive. I was always taken in by the provocative artwork of the main female character. Her chest and cleavage all exposed front and center. And then there's this piece where, holy moly, look at those legs, jeez Louise. So yeah, I wanted to see what was up with this game. And then I actually played it and oh, the character Zeffy looks nothing like that in the game itself. Nothing crazy horny about this game, it's just another standard RPG. Well, actually, I never finished it. Maybe it does get pretty crazy later on.
Go ahead and rest if you want.
Really?
Yeah, rest in peace.
Wait a minute!
Hey! Judo fell! Is he alive?
Did you play Infinite Undiscovery from Square Enix? How about The Last Remnant? Because both of them were also exclusive to this platform. For a Western game console, this thing was rolling in JRPGs. And that's not even counting the multi-platform stuff like Eternal Sonata, Star Ocean: The Last Hope, or my personal favorite, Enchanted Arms by From Software. God, the battle system in that game was so good, and at some point you can fight a golem that has a pizza for a face. It's brilliant! And of course, we have the Western RPGs. I think everyone got Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion on Xbox since it came out 1 year earlier before the PlayStation 3 version. And not gonna lie, it was really hard to resist the urge to replay the whole thing as I was making this video. The minute you escape the prison and end up in the green grassy fields, oh my god, what a wave of nostalgia that was. Plus, I'm also tickled by remembering the controversy of the Horse Armor DLC. People were so mad that that thing was like $3. And I can only laugh and laugh in 2025. Speaking of funny things, I would be remiss not to mention the Fable series. Like I said before, the original was one of the few games that made me play the original Xbox. Well, Fable 2 and 3 definitely had improvements in some areas, and in others, not so much. I like that these games gave you a dog companion, a nice pupper who digs up treasures and helps you take out the bad guys. You can earn money by being a blacksmith or a professional loot player, and then you can use all that cash to buy every single house in Albion, becoming the most brutal landlord of all time. There's a lot of fun things about these games that I still think about, but man, they needed a better story. Both games have such lackluster endings with characters that aren't nearly as fleshed out as they could be. I mean, look at this all-star cast for Fable 3. Simon Pegg, Ben Kingsley, Stephen Fry, Bernard Hill, Nicholas Hoult, Michael Fassbender. Isn't that crazy?
Its people will do as I say, or they will die. Its future will be as I decree, or it will end.
Peter Molyneux definitely made promises that these games could not live up to, but I can't be too mad at a game that lets you not only enter a gay marriage, but also adopt a child after doing so. There's also something to be said about a game that centers around revolution, about organizing the kingdom to rally against a mad king. Gee, I wonder if that's relevant in 2025. Either way, I still very much appreciate Fable. I mean, what other game starts off with a bird shitting on your head?
Oh, what was that? Oh, yuck. Well, I hear that's lucky. Like finding a four-leaf clover.
And now we come to the big one. And while this is a title that eventually came to PS3, it took over 5 years to do so. This series was originally part of Microsoft Studios and is arguably the best series of games on the 7th generation. BioWare came out of nowhere with this one. Like, obviously, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was a big deal, but compared to even their last title, Jade Empire, this was far more ambitious. In 2007, it was the best-looking RPG anyone had ever seen. The cinematic camera angles, the amazing score, the fantastic cast, and if you weren't into turn-based RPGs, this game was at heart a duck-and-cover shooter. That alone gave it a broad appeal that most BioWare games never had. But it all came together beautifully. The universe they created was just so damn fun. Plus, it was really quotable.
That Hanar refuses to listen to reason. Why can't it act in an orderly and lawful manner?
Because it's a big, stupid jellyfish.
You know the game's become a big hit when friggin' Fox News is warning its viewers about it. Oh no! Look out! Mass Effect has a sex scene in it! Oh no! Hilarious. As is the headline, Sex Box, because again, this was originally an exclusive. Microsoft came upon some magic beans and all of a sudden they had this really awesome thing that no one else did. The game was so incredible that Electronic Arts eventually took notice, and using their vast riches from all of the sports games, they absorbed BioWare completely. Mass Effect 2 would come to Xbox first, but after a year, the floodgates were opened. Rightfully so, everyone deserves to play it. But that first entry is definitely of its time. Before there were tons of microtransactions and celebrity journalists popping up as cameos, it was an ambitious space fantasy where you combed these deserted planets like a real astronaut, and you got to be the best take-no-shit commander anyone had ever played. It was just so cool, man. And combining that with Dead Rising, Saints Row, Halo, Gears of War, you really appreciated how much Xbox stepped up their game. It wasn't just one or two, there were so many damn exclusives. A little something for everybody, including the real-time strategy fans. Now I know what you're gonna say, Clement, who the hell would play an RTS on a console when mouse and keyboard are the ideal ways to play? Well, first off, that's some attitude you got there, buddy. There are dozens of us, dozens, who want to play on a console. And at the time, Microsoft was the only one picking up that slack. Lord of the Rings, Battle for Middle-earth 2, the Tropico games, Command & Conquer 3. If you wanted to experience C&C's amazing live-action performances from the comfort of your living room, now you could.
This isn't about me or Granger, Commander. This is about you. This is your time. Make your mark on history.
Goddamn, Billy D. Williams is acting his ass off. But of course, nobody can touch Tim Curry.
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
There's this spaceflight sim called Project Sylphid. It plays like Ace Combat or Star Wars Rogue Squadron, but in between all of the space missions, you get this cheesy over-the-top anime OVA, where one of the characters looks like Mike Tyson for some reason. I remember enjoying that quite a bit, customizing my ship and killing everything that moved with homing missiles. I also had a dramatic falling out with my wingman Riku. Damn it, Riku, how could you do this to me?
Katana! I warned you!
Stop this, Margaret! I don't want to fight you!
Rumble Roses XX. Okay, I didn't say that every exclusive was good. But if you're looking for a super horny all-women's wrestling game made by Konami, here was the sequel to a hilarious PlayStation 2 game. This one improved the gameplay with more match types, but it also took away the funny story mode that me and my wife lost our shit over. That definitely ruins the experience, but at least the entrances are still ridiculous. Did you find that strange and weird? Well, then you might have also enjoyed another game that had a massive impact on 360, and that was Deadly Premonition. Now some may say, this game is on PS3. Why are you discussing this? Well, yes, it did pop up on PlayStation originally in Japan, but it took 3 whole years to eventually reach that platform in the West. Us English speakers only had access to this through the 360, and I gotta say, there is nothing else like this. On paper, it's a horror game where you have to run from a killer in a raincoat. You shoot ghost zombies and go through creepy environments, and the animations are slow, and I don't think the gameplay is all that great, honestly. It's pretty bog standard, if not flawed. But that's not why you're picking this game up. The only reason we know what this game is today is because it became a viral sensation. For being really weird, really quirky, and ultimately completely unforgettable. A story about an FBI agent who talks to an imaginary person in his head about pop culture. Someone who solves mysteries by looking down a cup of coffee.
Did you see that, Zach? Clear as a crisp spring morning. F.K. in the coffee. I knew I could count on it. Never fails.
It is so strange, so Twin Peaks coded, but damn if it isn't entertaining, and damn if this isn't what video games are all about. Without that word of mouth from the internet, without that explosive discovery, we might not know who the developer, Sweary65, even is today. Maybe he doesn't go on to make Deadly Premonition 2, or The Missing, J.J. Macfield and the Island of Memories. In terms of all the big video game cancellations I've experienced in my life, I am still mourning the loss of D4. Dark Dreams Don't Die, a Sweary game that was an episodic exclusive for the Xbox One, did not get enough players, and so it was canceled almost immediately. You can still download the first 2 episodes, and I'm telling you, we were robbed. We could have had the greatest follow-up to Deadly Premonition, and Xbox fans, you let me down. We could have had the world. We could have had it all!
She doesn't like that you eat pork, hot dogs.
She thinks I've forsaken my hometown. She can't forgive me for that, so she gets all tough on me.
So she loves you.
You know, talking about Sweary, I'm reminded of so many similar indie developer stories about small teams that made something really obscure that unexpectedly exploded in popularity. Thanks to someone giving them a spotlight, their whole world changes. And such cases often occurred in the Xbox Live Arcade.
To expand the market, we're going to deliver more casual game experiences on demand through the Xbox Live Arcade. Whether retro, puzzle, or just plain old time-killing games like Solitaire, we're going to have an amazing assortment of games available.
By the way, the man speaking in the E3 2005 clips is Jay Allard, one of the co-creators of the Xbox. He left the company in 2010, and I attribute his design ethos as one of the major reasons the 360 was so damn good. Because he knew that gaming needed to court casual audiences, and that certain titles were just too small to sell with a DVD for $20 or $40. As mobile games start to explode, a digital marketplace for smaller titles just made tons of sense, and it really woke up the boomer gamers by giving them something they recognized but had not experienced in quite a while. Famously, one of the early launch games for XBLA was Geometry Wars, a twin-stick shooter with dazzling lights and fast frenetic gameplay. It's fantastic, but actually, this title was not created for the 360. No, it made its debut as a mini-game in 2003's Project Gotham Racing 2. Yeah, when you were finished driving your car, you could go into the virtual garage and take a break with this completely unique game. A game so fun that it had everybody commenting, why is this minigame so friggin' good? But like, you couldn't imagine them putting that game on a DVD. Not unless it was part of some kind of bundle. Or as shovelware for the Wii. So what do you do when you just want to make something small and simple? Not everyone wants Pac-Man to be this grand adventure. Sometimes they just want that classic arcade game. And thanks to achievements and the fantastic leaderboard system, this was a great way to see who was the best gamer in your social group. The big boy games were on store shelves offering up 1,000 gamer score, and the little guys were not much higher than 2 gigs and offered 200. It was the perfect setup to not only encourage the return of simpler games, but also to repackage older ones. Most arcade games never went past $15, and God, it is so quaint thinking about how offended gamers would get if it reached that high-end price. Oh yeah, you guys can afford $60 games, but how dare they release Sonic 4 for $15, those bastards! The only annoying thing about the marketplace back then was that games weren't sold under their monetary price. They were advertised by how many Microsoft points they cost. Like, a $5 game? 400 points. A $10 one? 800 points. 15? Well, now that's a whopping 1,200. I still have one of those Xbox Live gift cards that you'd find in a grocery store. It was the ideal way to load up on points when you were a struggling kid who just got their debit card. Regardless, Xbox Live Arcade was such a novel idea, and of course, it had lots of cool, unique exclusives. I think everyone was familiar with Hexic HD. That game came bundled with my first 360, and I remember trying so hard day after day to get all the achievements on this thing. Trying to arrange it so that you got diamonds in every single slot of the honeycomb, oh my god. Making this entire video has been nostalgic, but that in particular was like stepping through a time machine. I always loved Undertow, a 2D underwater squad-based twin-stick capture-the-flag shooter. Think Dave the Diver if it crossed over with Team Fortress 2. You got to choose from 4 different units who could all be upgraded, and despite the location, the game moved really fast. It wasn't just online either. It had a proper single-player campaign with cutscenes and everything.
This is what happens when a treaty I signed with the Queen of England is broken by those who should have come to me begging for succor. But there is so much we can learn from the surface men.
When I was in middle school, me and my friends all played Elastomania, a 2D game where you play as this motocross racer who has to balance on all of these inclines and platforms. We loved that game. So naturally, we were really happy when the Xbox got Trials HD. Like, the premise is simple. Get to the goal without falling over and do it really fast. But trying to get the best times, get all the gold ranks, this is the best case scenario when it comes to trial and error. It's so quick to jump back in, the checkpoints are really decent, and the game is friggin' hilarious for all of the dives you take. God bless ragdoll physics. This series would eventually come to PlayStation in 2014 after the developers were acquired by Ubisoft. And that's the other thing. Sure, XBLA was a great way to reinvent old established franchises. Yeah, we've never played Frogger quite like this. Pac-Man has never been so exciting. Oh my god, Mega Man is back and the game is friggin' amazing. But these are all franchises from Konami, Namco, and Capcom, the traditional publishers that have always been there. But the interesting side effect of curating smaller games was that it encouraged new developers to create titles for the platform. A team like Ninja Bee can make something as wacky as Cloning Clyde, a game where you play a clone who's trying to break out of a cloning facility. It's a platformer, it's a puzzle game, but more importantly, it's self-funded. It's an independent project that Microsoft allowed on their platform. Another way of putting it, it's an indie game. This title may have been too crude or too small to be on the GameCube or PlayStation 2, but in this new era of gaming, even the little guys had a chance to roll with the big guns. I mean, indie games have always existed long before the 360 was ever a thing. In high school, me and my friends frequented Newgrounds all the damn time. And for every Kramer's Hentai Adventure or the incredibly violent Pico's School, there was always something buried under the surface that was just waiting to break out. One of the first early 360 arcade games was Castle Crashers, a 4-player beat-em-up game with a fantastic art style that was really fun to play. And what prefaces the experience as you boot it up? The Newgrounds logo, because this is a game from Newgrounds, people. Arguably the best platformer on the system and one of the best exclusives the 360 ever got would have to be Super Meat Boy! What originally started as a flash game on Newgrounds had been fleshed out, pun intended, into one of the best platformers of that generation. A game where you play as a little cube of meat who's trying to save his bandaged girlfriend from an evil fetus. And if that sounds kinda crude and crazy, just wait until you see the cutscenes with their dark sense of humor. The game's control is just so tight, and the difficulty is high, but never frustrating thanks to the infinite lives and frequent checkpoints. It's one of my favorite platformers ever, and it was basically made by 2 guys. Team Meat were the subjects of one of gaming's most mainstream documentaries, Indie Game the Movie, and they, along with Jonathan Blow and Phil Fish, showed how the culture was changing in a major way. All of a sudden, people who grew up on NES games, Super Nintendo games, were now putting their own voices into the arena. And you can see it in the material itself. Super Meat Boy has tons of references and callbacks to the games from yesteryear. Castlevania, Mega Man, Pokemon. You play through Braid, and at one point a character says, "I'm sorry, but the princess is in another castle." Hell, there's a level in the game that's called Jumpman, and it's just straight up Donkey Kong. I don't know, there's just something about other indie games wearing their hearts on their sleeve that I find so precious. The last thing I'll say is that I appreciate Super Meat Boy for having unlockable characters, and almost all of them are from other indie games. Tim from Braid, the guy from I Wanna Be the Guy, Commander Video from Bit Trip Runner. It's a who's who of indie characters, and I like that sense of community. It's a great time capsule of that era. But okay, let's get back to the exclusives. One game I thought for sure was multi-platform was Bastion by Supergiant Games. This is the developer that's responsible for Hades, and so much of the DNA of that series is absolutely present in Bastion. It's got the same isometric viewpoint, your character wields multiple weapons, and there's always voiceover going on as the game is accompanied by constant narration. And the narrator reacts to everything you do. It's fantastic.
And then he falls to his death. I'm just fooling. Kid just keeps running. Somersaulting like crazy.
It's not roguelike the way Hades is. It has a sort of Zelda action brawler vibe that is complemented by just how tight the combat is. It's a game that doesn't overstay its welcome, and yet can be played as long as you want to. Absolutely adore this one. I was shocked to learn that it wouldn't come to PlayStation or Nintendo for another 4 years. Speaking of PlayStation, one of the big hits of the PlayStation 3 was undoubtedly the Uncharted franchise. Nolan North does such a great job as Nathan Drake, and those games are fantastic. But why would you want to pick up Uncharted when Xbox has Uncharted at home?
Didn't you say the other night at the bar that you could keep up with me?
You were hitting on me. I'd have said anything. You just had to be right, huh, Dad?
No, Claire! Damn it!
Okay, the game is called Shadow Complex, and while I'm joking about the fact that Nolan North plays the main character, who kinda dresses similarly to Nathan Drake, this title is actually really good. This game actually ended up on a lot of critics' lists for the best game of 2009. You play as this special agent who goes hiking with his girlfriend, only to stumble upon a hidden base with evil terrorists that plan to do bad stuff. This is a Metroidvania. You navigate through the titular Shadow Complex, acquiring new weapons and tools that will help you progress further through the base. From machine guns to jetpacks to special armor, the further you get, the more you become a freak of nature.
Feeling's getting easier. Not sure if that's good or bad. It's good.
God, the ludonarrative dissonance is killing me. But this game is genuinely really solid. I love the stealth mechanics. I love the giant robots that you fight. The control is really smooth and you don't spend the whole game backtracking. It just propels you from one set piece to the other, giving you that action movie schlock that you signed up for. And again, this was lauded by critics, considered by many to be one of the best games on XBLA. What an explosive reaction. Kinda like the main character of Splosion Man. In this game, you play as a radioactive living explosion person who is trying to escape from the laboratory in which he was created. It's a platformer with puzzle elements where your jump button is always an explosion. And after launching in the sky, you can only explode 2 more times before your nitroglycerin cools down. This isn't a rhythm game per se, but a lot of the jumps need to be made at very specific times, which has a certain feel to it, you know? Like Super Meat Boy, it can be very difficult, but at least you have infinite retries. The humor of this game is very twisted, with live-action cutscenes and scientists blowing up into all kinds of meat products. This game also got a sequel in the form of Missplosion Man, which, is certainly a game.
Shoes, shopping, lipstick, brunch. Oh, mimosas. Hey, sister. No, did you hear? Drama. A tote bag. Brunch. Mimosas. No, if you like it, then you better put a ring on it.
Another sleeper hit of XBLA is Mark of the Ninja. As a ninja, you have to blend in with the darkness and make your way through a series of levels filled with armed guards, lasers, spotlights, the works. But the mobility of the character as well as the cool art style make this game a friggin' delight from start to finish. I love how it illustrates whether you're out in the open by the lighting of the character. If you're completely enveloped in black, nobody can see you. But the second you start seeing color on your character, you gotta get the hell out of there. You get a cool grappling hook, you can throw objects not only to distract guards, but also flip switches. You crawl in the vents, you hide behind objects, and then you sneak up on your prey and take them out. It's so badass, and the story caught me off guard as well, with animated cutscenes that look like they were pulled straight from Toonami or Cartoon Network or something. One of the best games of 2012, it really deserves all the flowers. I want to talk about all the free games that were on Xbox Live. Typically today, there are lots of games that people can download without paying a dime. Your Fall Guys, your Marvel Rivals, your Genshin Impact. While getting in and playing is always completely doable, there's always a hook of some kind. Cosmetics, extra characters, microtransactions that the developers expect you to use because gosh darn, I really want that dress in Infinity Nikki. But the 7th generation did not operate that way. They just gave a shit because they could. Take Aegis Wing, for example. At the start is a splash screen that explains how the game was conceived as an internship project. Aegis Wing was made by 3 Microsoft interns, and the game was apparently just so good that the team behind Xbox were like, well shit, we might as well just put this out there. They could have easily charged $5. I mean, it's not like Feeding Frenzy is that much more advanced, but they didn't. And this is a 2D space shooter like Gradius or R-Type. You pick up power-ups, you die in one hit. You've definitely played a game like this. But what is unique is the fact that it can be played in both single-player and multiplayer. Up to 4 people, either locally or online. You don't see that too often. And it's tight. The enemy patterns aren't bullshit, it delivers on the game feel. For a completely free game, I still think this is pretty rad. Yeah, okay, it doesn't have cutscenes, and no, it's not super long, but hey, you get what you pay for, and in this case, I didn't pay nearly enough. It's not even sponsored, there's no advertisements or nothing, which is something I cannot say for the rest of the freebies. Enter Yaris, a 2007 advertisement for the Toyota vehicle of the same name. You drive down a Sonic-like half-pipe and shoot the weirdest bunch of goons. Fat sumo wrestlers, dogs on airboards, walking toasters? And if you're wondering why you've never heard of this until now, that's because it was delisted a year later in 2008. So imagine my surprise when I'm going through my purchase history, and not only am I reminded of this gem, but it's still on the servers. You can still re-download it in 2025. The store is closed, the game is delisted, but damn it, it's still there. Oh man, I'm hungry. No wait, I didn't mean that. Oh god! The Burger King trilogy. Exclusive to Xbox were a whole bunch of tie-in video games that you got as a bonus for buying food at the restaurant back in December of 2006. I've never heard of anything like that before or since. There's a racing game, a bumper car game, and also a stealth game where you play as the Burger King, sneaking up on unsuspecting people to terrify them beyond all belief, and then feed them burgers. I guess it's good that they knew their mascot was creepy. Okay, they weren't free. You still had to buy food at the restaurant. But I just wanted to point out how involved in sponsored content Xbox was. Which leads us to Doritos Unlock Xbox campaign. Oh, thank you, Doritos Pope, for the bountiful blessings. Microsoft partnered up with Doritos in order to hold contests for game developers. The winners would have their games be released completely for free on Xbox Live. First up was Dash of Destruction, a cute little minigame where cars try to grab all of the Dorito bags that they can, while a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex chases and tries to eat them. The neat thing about this game? You played as both. You could be the T-Rex, or you could be the cars. As a free game, it's harmless. It's an easy 200 gamer score, you know. Next up was Harm's Way, a weird Mad Max-style game where people in turrets are trying to kill racers who are competing against each other. And again, you could either be the drivers or the shooters. I have no idea why these ideas are so similar, but it is a game that exists. No, you see, I've saved the best for last. The final winner of the Doritos contest went to Crash Course, a Wipeout-style platformer where you have to get through an obstacle course as quickly as possible. And this game had all the best tech. You swung around on chains, you pushed down to slide on inclines, you had to remember to stop sprinting on treadmills or your character could trip. Finishing the courses was one thing, but getting all the gold medals? Hoo boy, that was the good shit. This game was so damn fun, I still love going back every now and then just to feel like the ultimate gladiator. And this is also the first game I'm talking about that actually featured the Avatar. And no, I don't mean The Last Airbender, although hold on to that thought. Now, obviously, the Xbox avatars are a direct response to Nintendo's Miis, because when Mii Sports came out, everybody was customizing their characters and it featured in so many games. And the people at Microsoft saw how successful that system was, and they figured to themselves, hey, we could do that. But it required a complete overhaul of the UI, and what was so bittersweet about it was that the Blades menu had to be scrapped. And boy, do I still yearn for the Blades, even to this day. But that being said, I did like the new layout, and I thought the avatars were incredibly awesome. First off, the customization was much deeper. You weren't just changing details about the head and then picking a color to represent yourself. They came up with dozens of unique clothing options that were not just simple one pieces either. You picked a shirt and pants, you could pick a hat, you could have sunglasses or rings or wristwatches, and then you could supply your avatar with a prop of which there are none at default. So where do you get them? Well, once again, Xbox did such a great job giving people an incentive to do all of the challenges, because now, along with achievements, future games would contain avatar unlockables. For example, if you beat the single-player campaign of Portal 2, you would get the portal gun as a prop for your avatar. Now, some people would hear that and go, oh, so what? My character's just going to be holding a portal gun? Who cares? No. No. You see, your character does not actually hold anything in the menus. Instead, when you remain idle on someone's profile, a 15-second animation will occur. You don't just hold the portal gun. The avatar pulls out it and a cube out, and then they proceed to bounce the cube between portals they put on the ground. What else can I unlock? And then you see that, oh hey, I can unlock a little Meat Boy for playing Super Meat Boy. I can unlock an Eggman costume for beating Sonic 4's final boss without taking damage. And then, of course, there is the Avatar store where you can just buy new clothing and props. Back in 2012, they announced the Mega Man Avatar set. Oh my god, there's a Mega Buster prop. Of course I had to buy it, and if you're friends with me on Xbox 360, that means you get to see my character shoot lemons, slide around, and even jump exactly the same way as Mega Man does. I just love that I can personalize my profile like that. When I scroll through my friends list, every single one of them is telling a different story. My friend Tyler, he dressed his character up as Batman. And because he killed 25 enemies with melee in Mass Effect 3, I get to see the Dark Knight with an Omni Blade. My cousin put his avatar into a tuxedo while wearing the Castle Crasher's helmet. And also, there's a mech of some kind, but I don't know what the hell it's from. It's just so fun to see my friends like this, and it's honestly one of the most personalized game communities I've ever seen on a console. It was later I found out that the team at Rare, yeah, Banjo-Kazooie's Rare, are the ones responsible for the Avatar stuff. And I'm telling you, this video is too long. I can't stay on this topic, but trust me, if you ever decided to glance at the Avatar store, you would be treated to an endless treasure trove of costumes and animations. You ever wanted to dress up like Tony the Tiger? How about Pinhead from Hellraiser? And every single prop had a unique animation that sometimes went above and beyond. Look at the Avatar bending animations. Look at that low poly whirlpool that's twisting and morphing its textures right in front of your eyes. Look at you flying through outer space as Superman. There are hundreds of animations like this. And I made a 30-minute video about the Avatar store ages ago. I really recommend people check it out. Regardless, getting back to Doritos Crash Course. The Avatar was playable because that was a feature for a select number of games. With the Sonic racing games, you could not only play as Banjo and Kazooie, you could also drive as your avatar. There was a really bad version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and you could skateboard as your special little guy. There was a Rainbow Islands remake. Your avatar could kill all the homophobic enemies. And then there were games that were made specifically for the avatar in mind. For example, Fire Pro Wrestling used nothing but avatars, and you rose your way through the ranks to become the ultimate wrestling champion. Be warned though, this game plays nothing like the other Fire Pro Wrestling games, and it's a big pile of doo-doo. Stay away, it sucks. Which takes us to a kingdom of Keflings or a world of Keflings. In this game, your avatar acts as a giant and is tasked with helping these tiny little people build up their homes. The graphics are interesting, but I do genuinely enjoy the gameplay loop. It's not a super stressful management sim, you're really just keeping your hands busy and trying to upgrade your town as best as you can. It's made worth it for the fantastic soundtrack, some of which you may have heard in this video. Another game that was delisted that you can no longer play was 1 vs 100. Based off of the TV game show, you and 100 other players would play the game show together as your avatars, which I still think was pretty unique. It worked pretty well. I miss that era. Now, even though I've covered basically everything I've wanted to cover, there is still one other elephant in the room that is kind of a prelude to the downfall of Xbox as we know it, and that would be the Kinect.
One of the things we're the most proud of is that the technology is invisible to you. It's all based around your physical movement and your voice. And why those things are so important is because those are things that you already know how to do. People don't want to interact with technology, they just want to have a fun time, and that's what Kinect delivers.
Nintendo had motion controls. It was the thing they were most famous for. It was awesome. PlayStation decided to copy them, and they were doing the PlayStation Move. So Microsoft figured, well, we got to enter the motion control game. But you know, the other two, they're still using buttons. They're still holding on to some kind of wand or remote. What if we did it without any physical component whatsoever? What if we just waved our bodies entirely and that was what controlled the rest of the game? It really only worked for dancing rhythm games, and that was about it. This one was a complete disaster. I remember so many games just ending up on the worst of lists. You try to play a game like Sonic Free Riders, and that thing requires that you jump up in the air in order to do tricks and stuff. But if you're living in like an apartment complex or you have people living under you, you don't want to be jumping up and down when you're playing a video game, you know? Plus that shit gets super exhausting, and just trying to like navigate the menus and try to slide all the things so you can get to where you want to go, it is so unintuitive. They had one game, Steel Battalion Heavy Armor, that for some reason decided to be as complicated as it could possibly be while being a Kinect game. They put you into the cockpit and they want you to fiddle with all of the dials and all of the switches in order to make the machine operate correctly. But At that point, just make it a controller game. Why would you make that a Kinect game? It controls like absolute dog shit. Why would you do this? They had a little girl pretend she was being licked by the tiger in Kinectimals. There's no vibration. There's no sensor that's going to touch your body or anything. Nothing is actually going to push you when you're playing the game. Why did you instruct a 6-year-old girl to act like she was being licked even though she wasn't? It was the most unnatural thing in the world. Oh my God. And you know, it's the same story you hear with all kinds of tech companies, all kinds of billionaires. As soon as they put a lot of money and resources into something, well, they're just going to keep on doubling down with that thing. And that's why the Kinect was such a major part of the Xbox One.
PlayStation Move's not only crazy precise, it's also got what we in the future call buttons, which turn out to be pretty important to those handful of millions of people who enjoy playing shooters, platformers, or, well, anything that doesn't involve catching a big red ball. So, I mean, come on. Who wants to pretend their hand is a gun? What is this, 3rd grade? Woo!
There's a reason that PlayStation really got their thunder back at the end of the PS3's life cycle, whereas 360 just kind of fell apart, you know? I just feel that, you know, it's the people at the top. It's the people at the top. But hey, it did give us Kinect Star Wars, which did give us the amazing Dance Central ripoff minigame that had those amazing changed lyrics. Oh my God, the Han Solo song is peak. Well, I think it's time to wind down. I have been writing the script for over a year, and I still don't know how to end it. Now, obviously, this is not a comprehensive video about all things Xbox 360. I know deep in my soul that I'm missing some things. Your experience with the console is likely very different from mine. I never played any of the Forza games. I never played Splinter Cell Conviction, which was a 360 exclusive. My cousin loves this game called The Dishwasher. I still haven't touched it. I only have so much time and money to play as many games as I can. I'm still going back and trying old 360 games for the very first time. And even with everything I talked about in this video, it also had all of that multi-platform stuff. The Batman Arkham games, Fallout, Masonic, Mega Man, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Nier, LA Noire, Mortal Kombat, BioShock, Walking Dead. I could be here all day talking about this generation. But I think you guys are probably tuckered out. I've talked your ear off enough. Again, I wanted to do this video initially because the 360's marketplace was closing down, which reminded me of the passage of time and how this console was the first one I ever bought outside of high school. I still remember the frustration of trying to get all the achievements in Mass Effect. I still rewatch all of the trailers I downloaded to the console. Games never usually exceeded 7 gigs, patches were incredibly small, the controller didn't die after like 4 hours, and you know what else I miss? Renting video games. My town used to have video stores, and that's how I tried so many games back then. Ugh. I certainly have nostalgia, but man, it was so fucking great. And I just needed you and all of the younger generations to understand that. And while Xbox used to be on top of the world, a lot of 360 games are still hanging around. Shadow Complex, Mark of the Ninja, Dead Rising, Deadly Premonition, Bastion, hell, even Missplosion Man is on the Switch, which I did not know. The 360's library is still kicking around in some capacity, and I betcha that they all run a lot better now than they did before. So what are you waiting for? Go play some video games, people. Join in my passion. Join in the thing that I love oh so much. Do as the Xbox tagline says, and jump in.
Merry Christmas, Xbox. It's Usher, and I hope that Santa got you everything you asked for, including Dance Central 3. I'll see you guys in the new year.
Now I made it through the weather. Better days are gonna get better. I'm so happy the carbon night is gone. I'm moving on. I'm so happy that it's over now. solo. I'm hiding solo. I'm hiding solo.